So, hello and welcome everyone to the Consumer Friends podcast. I think this is podcast number 4, actually. At Consumer Friend, we believe everyone should have knowledge of their rights when they are purchasing goods, services or digital content. So what they're entitled to and what they're not entitled to. You can find loads of information on our website, consumerfriend.org.uk, and we are constantly adding new content to the website, such as very fun, educational videos, TikToks and Trained in 2 leaflets, where you can learn a little bit more and understand your rights on topics in 2 minutes. You can also find our podcasts on the website, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other good podcast providers. So today, podcasting with me is Louise. Hi Louise, how are you today?
Hello, I'm hot actually. I'm melting today already. It's only 9 o'clock.
It is really warm. It is so warm, and it's too warm to be indoors doing podcasts.
But it's too warm to be outside as well. It's too warm to be outside.
We should just be in the sea drinking gin on the beach, I think.
Oh yes, that would be amazing. Or some sort of lilo with a drinks holder. Perfect.
Oh, shall we? What are you doing later?
Oh, we should. We totally should.
Okay, so today's podcast is about finding a good trader. And we luckily have a special guest with us today. We've got Ben Meredith. We did try and get Matt all right, but he was busy. So we've got Ben instead, who's the head of consumer protection for Trustmark. We're going to learn a little bit more about what Trustmark does very shortly. But it's really great to have you with us today, Ben. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Really good. Excited to be joining you today. First time on a podcast, so be gentle. Mm-hmm. And I guess apologies to everyone listening that I'm not Matt Allwright.
We'll take you instead any day of the week. Okay, right. Let's get down to business. So this podcast topic is all about how to find a good trader, as I just mentioned. As consumers, we need to be able to trust that the person or the company that we are going to employ for work around our home or wherever we're having work done are going to be all the things that we've spoken about in previous podcasts. So the work's going to be carried out with reasonable care and skill in a timely manner and at the right price. So we're going to be picking up on the stuff that we've previously talked about today and then elaborating on that, talking more about how we can find a good trader. So it's a big question. How do we do this? It can be an extremely confusing experience. What do we need to do to minimise the risk of a bad job or the job maybe not even being done at all, which obviously is going to create massive anxiety, maybe even, losing money here and there, which we really, really don't want to be doing right now, losing money, especially, in the times that we're living in, cost of living crisis, fuel hikes, etc. So before we move on to discuss what makes a reliable, trustworthy business trader, we probably need to discuss the opposite. So namely, rogue traders, or as I was telling Lou yesterday, rouge traders, as a number of my counterparts or friends, colleagues, when we were doing exams, the examiner who had to mark all the papers got really mad because so many people had written rouge and not rogue. So what is a rogue
easily
trader?
done though, Soph. Easily done. I can't write trader. I write tarda. It's not because I can't spell it.
No,
I can't get the word into my head.
A
rouge tarda.
Land, does it? A rouge tarda.
No.
How rouge or rogue have you two been? Let's find out. So,
well,
what is a rogue trader?
Sorry, Soph.
What is a rogue trader?
Well, what I was going to say to you is, we talk about so far. I mean, me and you have had lots of conversations this week about plain English, haven't we? About consumer vulnerability. It's been on the news all of the time around actually the language we use, and obviously one of our whole basis for the website and the project is around the language that we use in making things plain English. So far we've talked about organisations, companies, businesses and traders. So actually they're all the same thing, aren't they? So when we're talking about traders, we're talking about tradespeople, or we're talking about a business that comes into your house.
Yeah.
Which is
absolutely
so confusing just from the language point of view from that aspect.
And I think sometimes we dip in and out of different language because actually so many people understand so many different terms. So we're trying to cross-reference the different terms so that it lands and everybody can understand it, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. That's confusing in itself. So
chucking a rouge organisation, or a rouge. We're now bringing in a potential. We're bringing in French just to confuse everybody.
goodness me, ooh la la.
Well, anyway, back to your point. Rogue trader. What is a rogue trader? And a rogue trader, and this will be my definition, is a trader, business, organisation, person that would come to. They often cold call. It doesn't have to be a cold call, but they often cold call. Turn up uninvited. So my experience within trading standards would be, say, for example, somebody cold calling on someone's house saying, we're in the area, we're doing roofing work on your neighbours' houses. Whilst we're up there, we saw that you had some tiles missing. And then that rogue trader would come and charge you probably too much money to do unnecessary work on your house. We often find with these sort of rogue traders, they will prey on consumers that are particularly vulnerable because of their situations. Might be socially isolated, might be lonely. They won't do a good job, and they will charge an extortionate price. We also know that sometimes with rogue traders, they take people to the banks to withdraw a large amount of money. They can be intimidating, or the other sort of more sinister around it is that you get a grooming and a coerce and control element from a rogue trader. So it's nasty business, actually. From that's sort of the extreme end of a rogue would be my definition of the roguiest rogue traders.
Yeah. Ben, would you agree? You've got a background in trading standards. You've also worked in the same sort of arena that we've worked in. Would you say that's a fair definition?
I would. Yeah. So prior to Trustmark, I was frontline officer and a prosecutor as well. And quite often you'd have that situation where you get the knock on the door, it creates some sort of sense of panic or urgency, but don't worry, we're here to solve it for you. Quite often it would work up as well where, I'll fix that roof tile for you. It'll be £50, £100. So something that, gets your confidence. Oh, that's really nice. They're going to do that. It's not going to cost me the earth, which is always the worry of house stuff. And then obviously once they're up there and tiles are off the roof, that's going to cost a lot more than we thought because, all the wood underneath is rotten. And before you know it, you've gotten in too deep with what started off as a fairly sort of innocuous, helpful sounding knock on the door. And as Louise says, there's two tactics you tend to see. Partly the friendly sort of try and be part of your life, try and be really caring, all that kind of stuff. But at any point where they don't get that sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? Where they don't get that kind of cooperation, I guess, from the homeowner, then it can shift very quickly to be quite aggressive and quite intimidating. And then, we're going to walk off and leave your roof exposed or whatever it is. So that's certainly what you see. And those are what, we would see as the rouge or the rogue traders scenario. I won't name it, but I have seen letters go out with rouge trader on it as well, which is not helpful either. Looking for all these red folk. So that's it. But you also got the other ones, which isn't necessarily criminal and probably not the ones that knock on the door where they're kind of, their skill level is probably no more than a DIY hobbyist at best, but they might hold themselves out to be better. And those can be harder to detect and harder to pick up. And don't come to light till much later when someone who knows what they're doing goes, blimey, what on earth have they been up to here? It looks cosmetically fine, but the performance might not be what you'd expect in the longer term. So I would definitely support that. It's a real tough situation to deal with as well, because those that do get caught out feel, the sense of embarrassment, sense of worry, the anxiety and all that. It's just a really sensitive situation when folk get into that place.
Because they're vulnerable because of their situations, and then it has a massive knock-on effect on people's mental health around this sort of stuff as well. I mean, when me and Sophie used to do proper jobs when we worked as frontline officers in trading standards, we've known stories of rogue traders going up onto people's roofs and pouring coke through the roof so it stains the ceilings in people's houses, so it looks like the roof's leaking. They use some really nasty tactics, but like you said, Ben, there's almost like the people that are not experts but carry out what I would be considered a more expert style of work and then do it really badly. So they're not, if we had degrees of rogue. You've got the top degree of rogue, and then you've got like the middling, the sort of the bronze, silver, gold version of a rogue trader. And like the bronze version of a rogue trader, we're seeing an increase at the moment from a national perspective, and it's something that we will talk about on a future podcast, and some work that we're doing with Trustmark is around retrofitting your house and those things that will save you money, save you energy, like the energy hikes and the cost of living crisis is being used by legitimate and non-legitimate businesses to target people, to frighten them into things. So like things like foam in your roof, actually, which can then affect your mortgage. And non-compliant, I think you said when we spoke before, Ben, that it's 48% of heat pumps are non-compliant in their installation. That's the latest national statistic on it.
Yeah, and part of that is making sure the heat pump's the right solution for you, and that's I mean this is probably subject for another time, but there's a way you go about retrofitting your home. If you put the wrong thing in at the wrong time, whilst it's the right thing in the longer term, if you haven't insulated your home, you're not going to get the benefits, and actually your costs might go up, which is certainly not what you want in the current scenario.
Okay, so it all sounds pretty scary. Talking about this is quite dark. It's the worst outcome that you could want for is to, suffer at the hands of a rogue trader. So we need to know how to avoid this. We need to know how to empower ourselves. And Ben, you work for Trustmark. What do Trustmark do? Who are Trustmark? Talk to us. Tell us.
Sure. So Trustmark is the only government endorsed quality scheme for works that are done in and around your home. So in terms of Trustmark ourselves, we're a not-for-profit social enterprise. We're here to deliver confidence for homeowners, and we work through a network of scheme providers and registered businesses to make sure who you're getting in your home you can trust. We aim to provide a high level of assurance and certainty and protection to homeowners that are looking to have work done. The businesses that have the Trustmark registration are thoroughly vetted and monitored, and that's to ensure they meet the required standards of technical competence in their trade, but also in terms of customer service and trading practices, so that when you get someone in, you can be confident you've made the right choice. How we do this is underpinned. We have a customer charter and a code of conduct those businesses and those schemes need to work under, and what we call framework operating requirements, which is basically our rules. And that's how we ensure that those standards are set at a higher level. It's absolutely critical to us that consumers are protected if something goes wrong. So all registered businesses are required to provide a minimum of 2 years financial protection on works they complete, and that covers both workmanship and the product. So this is to cover the eventuality where they might cease trading for whatever reason, they might retire, so they're not able to rectify the issues themselves. And things do go wrong from time to time, even with the best. We're all human. So when something does go wrong, we've got a rigorous dispute resolution process in place, and access to ombudsman that if they can't resolve it between themselves, then there's a bit of additional support and independent, free support there to kind of adjudicate as to what needs to be doing there. So that's where we are. And I think probably most importantly for today, we share Consumer Friends' desire for consumers and businesses to get clear, simple, modern advice about consumer rights, because I think a lot of disputes come down to people not understanding what they're entitled to or what their obligations are. So we're super excited to be working with you guys on this.
Ben just said we're modern, which means we're very woke and down with the kids, Soph. I had that as well. Like this week we launched on TikTok, didn't we? Meet the Consumer Friend Kids, because I put my kids on TikTok because I thought they might modernise it a little bit rather than a 42-year-old woman trying to work her way around TikTok or TokTok, as Adam calls it, for God's sake.
He still hasn't done a video.
He hasn't done a TokTok video. No, he hasn't. We need to get him on that.
See, I've never been on it, so completely beyond.
Oh, Ben, you need to do one as well.
Definitely not. I'm with Adam in the TikTok scenario here.
Just to summarise what you said in relation to Trustmark. So obviously, I know there's sometimes as well when we work in this industry, we have a lot of assumed knowledge, and we use words like assured, and we use words like verify and professionally competent, and all of those sort of words that we use. So basically what you're saying from a Trustmark perspective is I can go on your Trustmark website. What's the website address, Ben?
www.trustmark.org.uk.
And I can put in my postcode and I can go, right, I need a new boiler, and I can put in new boiler or plumber, and then you will give me a list of plumbers or qualified people that I can trust to come to my house to fit my boiler. And if there was a problem with that boiler, Trustmark would help me resolve it. Is that right? Or if the plumber couldn't resolve it first, Trustmark there would be some protection there, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, you could go on, you get someone you trust, you know that they are competent to do the job they're meant to be doing. And it's hard because
what does competent mean? What do you mean by competent?
It means they know how to do what it is that they're expected to do. So if there's professional qualifications or standards, because, there's a myriad of things. So, an electrician has certain levels of qualifications, a plumber has certain level as well. Others are by way of experience, and there are agreed standards there. So it's hard to do a one-size-fits-all other than to say they are qualified and competent to do what it is they're meant to do. And we take that out of your hands because you're not meant to know that. There's no, how would you know whether an electrician is doing the right thing or the wrong thing? If you knew what was going on, you'd probably do the job yourself, wouldn't you? So it's about making sure that whoever comes in, you can trust that they have been checked and they are definitely good at what they do. And then you go further to say they're going to behave in the right way when they deal with you. And if something goes wrong, then there's protections in place to support both sides, really, but particularly consumers who are in a more vulnerable position to reach a resolution.
It ties into that reasonable care and skill element of a service that we were talking about in the last podcast as well. You will hope that coming to find a trader through you guys will mean that they will operate with reasonable care and skill because they've got the desired qualifications and, necessary requirements to do that job. So
that's it. And it's monitored. So if we get wind that there's a situation where that may or may not be happening, then obviously we can work with the schemes, like the Federation of Master Builders or Fencer or whoever, work with them to check, actually, is that the situation? Is there a problem there or not? Do we need to look at other jobs? So we've got that in place because things do slip from time to time. So keep people on their toes and make sure that they're doing what they should do. It's not just a one and done and then you forget about them for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because there's things like I said to Soph this week, I want shutters in my house. So I've got 3 people. So I know the rules. I've got 3 people coming to give me quotes because we've always been advised you get 3 quotes and you don't necessarily pick the cheapest quote either. And it's also about whether you like the people that are here, because somebody could be the most the bestest trader in the whole of the country, but if you don't like them, you don't want them in your house. There's that to it as well. You talk about the customer service element. You get your 3 quotes, don't you? I also am looking to have solar panels put on my house and a new boiler. I don't know anything about boilers, so I am trusting. Now, my plumber, I know him, so he's a friend of mine, so that's slightly different in that I trust him because of those reasons. Maybe that's misplaced trust, I don't know. But again, well, you don't know, do you? Again, he's my friend, so I trust him. I trust him that he's going to know which boiler's best for my house. Yeah. Because again, he's going to advise me. I'm not going to know. I'm just going to turn it on and want hot water and want my heating to work. Because there's nothing more stressful. My boiler, do you remember 2 weeks ago, it went twice in a week. I had no hot water and then the shower blew up. So I was and it was so hot, I had to run in and out of it, scalding myself just to try and have a wash.
Yeah, I mean, Louise, you suffer from some extreme conditions. We have, scalding, frozen, lost toes.
I know, the toes. But then also, the scalding shower, honestly, Soph, it was my whole body was red. I was rouge, actually. I was a rouge person.
Temperature theme coming up here, isn't there?
Yeah, really.
God, it was. No, but it's hard, isn't it? So I'm in the know. Soph, you'll hear me moaning about this constantly, about things going wrong and doing all of this sort of stuff. And I'm a trading standards officer by trade, so I know this stuff. But when it's in your own home, it feels horrible to complain and to be able to have a problem with somebody that's in your own house as well.
Okay, so let's move on then. That kind of leads us really nicely into, let's talk about the top tips of things that we really need to think about and consider when we are looking for a good trader, a business. So like you just said, you've had loads of stuff done in your house, Lou. Ben, I know that you've, moved and done development on your property and things. What are you guys looking for? Tell our listeners, what are the top things that we should be doing?
Ben does loads of stuff himself. He's not like me, who goes, I don't know what I'm doing.
But don't employ
Someone
me.
else do it.
Don't employ me because I'm very much a rouge trader. So, I wouldn't sell my services. Very much hobbyist. I think the first thing is to be really clear and specific about what it is you want done, because everything else will flow from that. Because if you go and get quotes, go and get anything else done, have any conversations, the thing that underpins it is being absolutely clear as to what you want done and sometimes how you want that thing done. And then everything flows from there.
But Ben, that you say that right now, I had a builder in this week to quote me to have fitted wardrobes put in. Okay, now I don't know what I want in those fitted wardrobes. Sure. I don't know what sorts. I don't know whether I want drawers. I don't know whether I want shelves. I know I want a back put on it, against the wall, and I know that I want doors. And he advised me that actually sliding doors would be better because then they're not going to clear the pathway. But I don't actually know what I want. I don't know what sort of doors I want. I also can't visualise it to think, do I need 2 hanging rails or 1 hanging rail? And that's the sort of thing. And again, like having a new boiler, what sort of boiler do I want? Do I want a combi? Do I want a electric? And again, it's trying to find where do we get that information and how do we know without being bloody training as a plumber or as a fitted wardrobe specialist?
Yeah, it is really tricky. It is really tricky, but you'll know, you want something done. You know roughly what you want the outcome to be, and then you use those traders that give you quotes to help you shape that. So if you say, look, I'm not sure what I need in this scenario. Is it this? Is it that? Is the other? What do you recommend? Because you do this all day, every day. Then between the traders you get in to do estimates and quotes and whatnot, then you should be able to come to a consensus as to what it is you want. You can always take that back and go, right, if you've spoken to the third one, you can go back to the first one and go, look, I've had to think, what about this? And how does that stack up in terms of what we discussed? So you can go back and forth. Obviously, you can do research on the internet and have a look at ideas. And there's loads of brilliant websites that give you advice about the pros and cons. And, you've got like Pinterest type stuff if you want look and feel as well. So there's loads of things you can do to help shape the idea. But the whole point of these is they're experts in what they do. So you ask the questions and don't be afraid to ask the questions if you're not entirely sure. And that's why you have more than one out, because they will have different views and there'll be as much about how they do stuff and how well they do stuff as the fit for you. And if they're more on your wavelength, then that might be a reason to go with one over another. But that will help you shape what it is you want so you can be clear and specific.
Right. So an example of that, when I had my kitchen done, my knock-through done and my new kitchen put in, one of the specific, I've got very high ceilings, so I wanted the extra tall cupboards. I also have a slight height issue where I have to have steps in every room because I'm so short. So when I actually had the kitchen done, I wanted the island, I sound so frightfully middle class with my island right now, but I had the island lowered. But not so. I didn't want it to look like it was lower. I didn't want it to look like it was smaller, like from a viewpoint, because it's lower than the worktops. But I didn't want when you walked into my house, if I ever sell the house or whatever, for people to think, right, okay, she's got a lower worktop than that. But if I don't have it low, I can't chop things because I'd have to stand on my tiptoes. So that's the sort of thing you're talking about. Be specific about the things that you want. If there's things that are really key and important to you, like for me having a lower worktop, because obviously having no toes and being very short, this is difficult for everybody. Being able to chop things or open a bottle of wine, even that, get some purchase on opening a bottle of wine on the work. So those specific things, do you think it's worth writing those down?
Definitely, if you've got particular needs, then you need to make sure that's communicated, because when you go back to the legislation stuff that you guys discuss around fit for purpose and as described and all that kind of stuff, there's no point installing a kitchen that's an off the shelf job if it won't suit you. And it's about making those adaptations. So you've got to be clear about, well, I need to be able to use this thing at the end. So what can we do to make it more usable for me, and what's the cost of that? So that does help be specific, and that that island and that worktop height issue is something you might want bespoke for you because it's your kitchen.
I'm glad you're taking this very seriously, Ben. I'm glad you're taking my height issue, my worktop issue so seriously.
Well, I've got to. She's got no toes.
I know, I've got no toes.
Oh, goodness me. So we've got write things down, do research. Vital. Research, learn what you want, know what you're looking for. Really important.
But also, again, just be that, again, if the average reading age of a UK consumer is 12, again, that sometimes is quite tricky. So you do the best with what you can, I would say, in that space, isn't it?
Absolutely, but know what it is that you want and try and communicate that in the best way possible. Then we've got get 3 quotes. So consult with at least 3 businesses, traders. So when we talk about quotes, what's the difference? Talk to me about the difference between a quote and an estimate, because I think that's quite important.
Quotes a fixed price, an estimate's a variable price, pretty much. An estimate could be changed. It's a guess at what the price is going to be, so it could be changed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a high level guesstimate of what roughly I think it'll be. The quote will be the more specific, having measured stuff up and having had that conversation about worktop heights and all that kind of stuff. Then you move it into the fixed price, and that'll be then what flows into your contract.
Mm-hmm. Just need to bear that in mind, because obviously if something's an estimate, it is an estimate, and there is scope for that to change or move. So you need to be clear about what it is that the business is giving you. Is it a quote? Is it an estimate?
And just jumping on the 3 quotes thing as well, it's worth probably highlighting that certainly a lot of trades are really busy. So since the pandemic, demand has gone up hugely, but there's not necessarily been supply of tradespeople gone up at the same rate. So you may find it a little more tricky to get quotes, or because they're so busy or already got jobs stacked for 3-6 months on. So don't be put off by that, and certainly don't be persuaded to go with the first quote just because they quoted or just because they were cheaper. It is worth persevering, and if you're not comfortable, then don't go with them just because they're the only one that quoted. It's worth taking that time, because that is how people get themselves into bother, really. But just be mindful that businesses will be busy and may not be able to quote or start as quickly as you might want at the moment. But still stick to the rules are still right. Just don't be tempted by that kind of urgency.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, Louise, you might want to get some quotes aside from your friend, because you told me how much he's charging you. It sounds extortionate.
Well, this is the thing now, isn't it? It's like, but then also I get impatient, so I'm just like, I'll just do that. Like, and I need to not do that. That's why. So the shutters on my house, I'm having 3 quotes. I've got 3 companies coming in to give me 3 quotes.
Okay.
So that I can then size up who I like, decide which size shutter opening I want, and then go from there.
So have you guys got any more tips for our listeners? What about things like time frame, cost? Any tips in relation to that when trying to find somebody to come do some work in your house?
Well, you're expert, like Ben says, there's a massive issue with supplies at the moment, and building work has gone up quite tremendously because of the pandemic. So I think there's something about managing your own expectations about when that work's going to be done.
Yeah.
Only pay for what you can afford. Get the work priced. I mean, it depends how you do it. Some builders will trade or price up the whole job, or other people break it down into certain elements. So again, that's a personal preference. I personally like to see it all itemised, so I know what I'm getting. So I go, right, I'll have that bit now. I won't have that bit. I can't afford that. I'll earn that to do that when and when and when. So, but get it written down so you know what you're getting, and get the time frame written down. So, if you're having build work done, get an estimated time frame. So then, if it stretches too far past that, then you're in a space where you can start saying, look, you need to hurry up now and get this work done.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So we've got some contract templates that can be found on the consumer business portals on our website. Excellent. They've been issued through Trading Standards Assured Advice with colleagues at Bucks and Surrey Trading Standards. So if contracts aren't there, you can have a look at those and see how different to the ones you're offered to get, or if you have to develop those yourself, then go for it. But certainly get everything written down. Ideally, have both parties sign and date it, and the same applies if you're doing any changes to scope or changes to the contract or whatever, timescales, whatever. Make sure it's both signed and dated, because that protects both parties moving on. The other thing I'll talk about in terms of timeframes, absolutely, it's important. You need to know roughly when they'll start, to within a particular date, and then how long the job is likely to take, so that everyone can plan it. But beyond that is thinking about when payments might fall due. So if you're doing a large extended piece of work, then you might pay a deposit in advance. You might need to make sure that that's protected if there's a delayed start, God forbid anything happens. But also there might be various stages, like once the prep work's done, then it might be a case of some money towards, recognising that some work's been done, and in anticipation of buying materials for the next stage. I know trades will have accounts and stuff and all that, but equally, if that's what they want, then that's part of that conversation to make sure everyone's clear about when money is expected at various points and various stages of the works. And that avoids some of the issues where people can pay potentially too much money up front, or might do that, and then that leaves them in a vulnerable position. It's quite risky because, particularly in the current climate, if there's a lockdown that we weren't expecting, and then the business folds, you're the one who will lose out. So it's about protecting yourself as well in this process.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to ask about reviews, because that's another thing. We might ask our friends and family for advice. Have you used that electrician, that builder, that plumber? But also a big part of that is the internet, is going online and looking at reviews. What do we think about reviews?
Sorry, my dog's just been sick. In the middle, just been sick. I was like, that's amazing. That's not distracting at all, is it?
Which one, Colin or Ted?
Teddy, not Colin. Teddy's just been sick. No, now he's trying to sit with me. Sick chops. Reviews. You can't always trust reviews. No, unfortunately, there's some new legislation coming in. If it gets pushed through, depending on what happens with the sort of political uncertainty at the moment, around there are fake reviews, or people are requested to make reviews, or paid. Some people pay to write reviews, so you can't always trust the reviews. Which is why, again, it's that pushing everything back to Trustmark, pushing it all back through that website. Find your reputable trader that way. But there's also the other thing around, like we use Trustmark and we use organisations like that. But it's also asking your mum, your sister, your auntie, which builder did you use? What sort of job did you get? Did you were they on time? What were they like price wise? Did they sort out any problems? Like with my builders, I had my builder work done a year ago. They came back last week to take my doors out to refit them because the heat made them drop. No, there was no question about that. They just came and did it. They came and did it straight away. Like, again, we laugh about my plumber, but he comes out. If I text him in the morning and go, my boiler's gone, he's out by the afternoon. Do you know what I mean? And there's no, and it's that sort of relationship. It's about trusting your instincts, I think, sometimes with people that you meet as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, the thing with the internet is it is what it is. So, do you believe everything you read? You don't know who the reviewer is. You don't know if they've even had work done. You don't know what the motivation is behind it. You only get part of the story. If there is a bad, people are more likely to put bad stories on than good. But you don't know, the he said, she said part of that. You don't know what's gone on that leads into it. So definitely use it to guide. 'Cause obviously, there is something about having a look and being on guard if there's particular things highlighted or themes coming through. So it's worth having a look, but I wouldn't solely rely on them myself.
Yeah, it's easily done. It's like when you go on holiday and you go and how many like reviews do you read about the hotel that you go into until you get yourself in such a tiz that you've booked?
That gives me such anxiety, Sophie. I spend then the TripAdvisor reviews, and it's an ongoing joke in my house, like with my mum, who helps me out so much with the kids. If she does something that I don't like, I go, "This is affecting your TripAdvisor reviews."
Oh, poor Lily.
Oh, like you're on a 1-star now. You're on a 1-star on TripAdvisor. No, but it does. It does give you anxiety. The reviews can, but I think you have to take them with a pinch of salt, don't you? But also, there was a study around this. Actually, we trust reviews more than anything else. So, like Amazon, for example, on Amazon, we trust those reviews when people are saying things about like whatever you're going to buy, which is why you've got all those search things where you tick only 5 stars or 4 and up. So it's worthwhile for businesses to get people to write good reviews, because otherwise they get missed.
Yeah.
But the thing with that also to remember is it does assume all the other stuff is in place, like the thing is safe or people have done the work well, because you don't know. You might give that review within 2 weeks of the work having happened, but they've done a job that cosmetically looked fine, but is going to fail. So again, there's something about when these reviews go on just to be slightly cautious about and not hold too much stock in it. But there is something about that you want to see what someone like me thought.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so powerful.
It's a whole package of things that we need to do as consumers. Absolutely. But again, it just brings us back to the point about Trustmark and why it's so important to, lean into and on organisations that are going to support you as a consumer. And there are these, processes and things in place to help you if things go wrong. So, yeah. Go and have a look at the Trustmark website and see what's on there and put your postcode in if you need.
And the Consumer Friend website.
Yeah, obviously. I'll have that one again later, Louise. Right.
We've got all the links, haven't we? We've got advice on how to get a good trader. We've got a checklist on there around things to consider before you think to employ somebody. So that material is already up on the website. Absolutely.
Okay. So we're kind of wrap up soon, but I really wanted to know, excuse me, what if you've got a
There's
golden
a French
top
theme.
tip.
There's a French theme. There it is again.
Look, we have to have themes. I've got a croaky voice. It's early morning for a podcast. What are your top tips, golden tips? One thing, if you could advise somebody, help somebody, what would your one thing be? Louise?
Get it written down.
Okay, get it written down. Ben?
Get it written down, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say use a Trustmark registered business, but then you might expect me to say that.
That's all right. It's your golden tip.
Top tip.
You can have whatever tip you want.
I think beyond that's the obvious prerequisite. I think beyond that, my more general tip would be make sure you give yourself time when you're comfortable, because doing home improvements can be intimidating because of the cost or potential cost. Mm-hmm. You're in a vulnerable position because you're relying on someone, and they're also in your safe space. And in my sort of prior to Trustmark, my trading standards career, the majority of issues, the thing that I felt kind of underpinned all of them was that people either rushed or were rushed, and that led to the problems down the line. So I think it's about taking time and make sure you're comfortable, because these can be big purchases.
It's that self-imposed pressure as well, isn't it? It's self-imposed pressure. We feel like we need to make a decision quickly because we don't like to sit in silence, and we don't like to make people feel like we're causing them an imposition or a delay or any of those sort of things. It's even like how high you have your blimmin' light switches, or how you turn your lights on, all of those things. Like I had to, when I had my kitchen, I had to pretend walk around my kitchen all the time, like an invisible kitchen. It's amazing. Colin, Ted.
They just really wanted to get on the podcast, didn't they?
They bombed on the podcast.
Resist it.
Don't work with kids or
wanted to
animals.
jump on board. That's fine. Colin and Teddy, welcome. Got any top tips?
Don't work with kids or animals. That's what it is. That's the top tip. That is the top tip.
Amazing. Is there somebody at the door? I think there's somebody at the door. This is classic. My dog barked last week as well, so it happens.
Yeah, right. Don't come to the door unexpected, I think is what we're trying to say.
It's my mum.
yeah.
Amazing. Right, wrap it up. Golden tip, don't work with kids or animals.
Right. Well, thank you. Amazing. So thank you so much. Ben, thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to, have your input. It's been really, really useful, and I'm sure it will be for our listeners. Louise, thank you as always. If you enjoy our podcast, please go give us a like on our socials, give us some feedback. We're always open to feedback. Go and visit www.consumerfriend.org.uk, and the Trustmark website is www.trustmark.org.uk. Is that right?
That's it. Spot on.
That's it. Thank you, and we will see you and speak to you. Well, not see you, speak to you on our next podcast in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks,
Thank you
see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.